Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started.
Okay.
Come here, Jerry. Come on, look at you. So fun. I can't stop laughing for a minute. And I'll do yes. Oh my gosh, I look very red. Come on, Jerry. Come on.
Yeah.
Get pumped up.
I'm ready. You're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Get calm for a second. Eden, Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the wonderful, powerful, awesome Grassroots Warriors Network. Hi in UK. Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So excited to have you. Just so everybody knows, we recorded yesterday and we got so many freezes and the microphone was, having some issues. So we're going to do it again today. And it's so great because I know more about Jerry too. So I think it's going to be awesome. You were at a retreat in Europe with my dear friend Brooke, who was on my show, episode 54. How was that retreat?
Yeah, it was awesome. I highly recommend it to everybody. It was my first holistic retreat.
First.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of martial arts retreats before, but first holistic retreat, and it was super, super cool. Like, people were cool. It's a beautiful place. Therapies were like crazy. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. Made some new friends. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, well, and here you are. Okay, so Brooke was on 154 and we're on episode 166. So even when I was thinking about my intro, Eden, Just Be Spiritual Boom, I've done that like 166 times now. So so Brooke introduced us, and when we first talked, you asked if you could do the show incognito, and I said, "No, Jerry, we need to see your face." So, and just like Jen for last week, this is the first podcast you've been on, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually wearing a mask right now.
Oh, what? For those listening, he is not. Well, maybe he is. Maybe it's a subconscious mask. I don't know. Yet y'all know I love meeting all types of people who know what is going on in this world and through the Matrix and the Great Awakening. And Jerry has some really neat stuff to share. So I'm going to go right into your bio. Okay. Master of none, yet currently helping people with physical and mental health through personal training. A perpetual student of martial arts, the mind, cryptids, which for those who may not know, cryptids are animals or other beings that cryptozoologists believe may exist somewhere in the wild, but whose present existence is disputed or unsubstantiated, let me say it again, unsubstantiated by science. So much is unsubstantiated by science, which is real. So from Sasquatch, to the Loch Ness Monster, to the Mothman, which, Jerry, maybe we'll talk about that, see if you know about that. So all things weird and life in general, swashbuckling his way through the Matrix in his own adventure of spiritual transformation and a search for truth and peace. I love that. All right, Jerry, let me start today. Your Chinese upbringing and your gran and seeing ghosts and you also what you used to see. Can you start there?
Sure. So I'm a first generation Scottish Chinese. My family came to Scotland in like sort of late 60s, early 70s. And we grew up in a house where it was like 15, 16 people. Like 3 generations. So
whoa, okay, where was this?
This was in Scotland.
In Scotland.
Yeah, so it's not unusual, like in Asian culture, to have like multiple generations living in the same house.
Mhm.
Um, so it was, yeah, so it was pretty crazy upbringing. And one of my grandparents that lived with us, my gran, she could see ghosts, and they used to follow her around. I was kind of young at the time. I don't really remember like much of it. I don't really remember much of her, but I inherited that from her. Like supposedly it skips a generation. Um, so yeah, I started getting having experiences when I was quite young, um, and it kind of just grew and grew as I got older, to
Okay,
the
what
point
what kind of experiences did you have when you were younger? What was that
where.
like?
So the first one really was waking up one night. I think I was about 15, and I just woke up one night with a. I felt like somebody was in a room and they'd sat down on the bed, and I could feel the bed being pressed down. And when I tried to roll over, I couldn't pull the sheets. I couldn't pull the duvet. It's like as if somebody was sitting on it. And I was like super scared. I didn't know what was going on, so I was too scared to open my eyes. So I would, I was just kind of lying there, and the when I rolled over, the thing like stood up, so the bed like decompressed, and it walked around to the side that I'm facing, and it sat down again, like facing me, and that was the first kind of real experience. And then
Okay,
from
so were
there,
you were at that moment were you scared or just like, well, here we
yeah,
go?
like yeah, initially I thought like it was like somebody, like one of my sisters or something, but I always used to sleep with the door locked.
Hmm.
So there was no way anybody could have come in. And why would somebody come in and just randomly sit on my bed like at 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning? And it was the first time that I got this sensation. And since then, this always happens whenever I have one of these experiences. And basically, my skin kind of goes numb and I get like tingling up like the backside of my head and I go like super cold. And that still happens now. So that's when I know like something is around or something's happening, is when I get that sensation. Um, After that, it wasn't until a few years later where things started happening more regularly. Um, Mostly starting off with seeing like shadows, like things out the corner of my eye. Occasionally like hearing like voices.
Hmm.
And it seemed to get stronger as I got older, and it got to the point where it was almost a daily occurrence. And a lot of apartments that I used to live in were like super haunted. Uh, yeah, lots and lots of weird stuff. There was one apartment that was there was like a spirit or ghost in the living room. Used to stand in the corner next to the floor lamp, and there was one in the kitchen, and there was like a little girl like in the bedroom. She used to go from the bedroom to the living room, and she was there all the time. Used to see her like super regularly, and when I first started growing my hair, actually, was I fell asleep on the sofa one night, and I just came out of a relationship, and I woke up and I could feel like my hair like moving,
Uh-huh.
and like I was half asleep, and I thought it was my girlfriend, and I didn't think anything of it. But then I was lying there, and I thought to myself, "Wait, we broke up. She's not here."
What is this?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and like I hadn't seen the little girl at that point, but like I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you can just like feel like
Oh
what's
yeah.
going on. Yeah. And the first time I saw her was waking up one night, and she was standing in the corner of the bed, like just on the mattress. And so this went on. I was in that apartment for probably six years, and it was a regular occurrence. And almost I used to wake up at night, I'd be dreaming, and then I'd be sort of aware that I'm dreaming, and partly through the dream I would start choking, and I wouldn't be able to breathe, and I'd be like really, like, I'd be like holding my breath to the point where I'm almost like suffocating, and then I'd wake up, and I'd be like panting and puffing, and I'm like freaking out. And it happens like almost on a nightly basis, and it didn't occur
Jeez.
to me until somebody said to me like that they thought it was the spirit of the girl like telling me like what had happened to her. and she was saying that she had suffocated in her sleep and she was trapped in the apartment and she needed like help to move on. But this, I didn't become aware of this until after I'd moved out of the apartment, and I think like she was trying to like tell me something, you know, send me this message to help her. But unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't into like spiritual stuff and holistic stuff at that time. I didn't really know much about it. I just thought it was like creepy and it was haunted.
Okay, wait a
Um,
minute. All right. So you saw these apparitions, ghosts, energies on a daily basis,
hmm.
and you were just like, okay, this is weird, but just went on with your day.
Yeah, like it got to the point where like I was just yeah, it's weird. It just you kind of just get used to
Oh my gosh.
it.
Wow. We didn't talk
Yeah,
about this yesterday. All right. So
no,
it just
that
happened.
apartment,
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
apartment. Like I tell you, this sounds made up, right? But I swear to God, this happened. So that apartment, there was maybe um like maybe 50, 60 apartments. It was a low rise, old building.
Yeah.
This was in Hong Kong, by the way. And somebody had bought the apartments and they bought everybody out and they were going to demolish it and turn it into a hotel.
Uh-huh.
So everybody moved out apart from me, and I was the last person to move out of the building. And I was there for probably about 8 months by myself in this like huge building, and it was the creepiest like thing. But again, because I'd been there for so long, like I was kind of used to it. Um, and at night time, I'd come back and I'd walk up the stairs and I'd go into the apartment, close the door, and I could hear, you know, people walking around. I could hear kids. I could hear, and I knew that it was, you know, like spirits, but because I just kind of used to it, you know, like you just ignore it. But one night I had fallen asleep on the sofa, and I woke up at about it must have been 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Um, so I got up and I just walked to the bedroom, and the I didn't have any blinds or curtains on the windows. I was right by the harbour. I could see across the water and over onto the mountains. Um, and I kind of glanced out the window as I was walking to my bed, and I saw like loads of people. Like it looked like they were wearing like white. They were walking around on the harbour, just like walking around really slowly. And then I kind of went to bed, and then I thought to myself, it's like 3, 4 in the morning. Why is there all these people walking around? So I got up and I went to the window and I looked outside, and there was like they were spirits. There was like all these like ghosts just like walking around on the harbour, and I was like, what the? I was like, what is going on? And at some point, I was just kind of standing watching them, and then at some point, like they started stopping. They would stop, and they like looked up like at my window, and I like yeah, I was creepy. I was creepy. I kind of dropped to the floor and was kind of like lying there thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I didn't. I was too scared to look out the window again, so I just kind of like, like army crawled back into the living room. That was weird. That's one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen.
Okay. For we could talk about all the weird things that I do and have seen. As we continue talking, I just want to tell you, I feel, have so much potential. I know you're going to be starting with something holistic that we're going to talk about as well, but blending now that you are on the spiritual path, if in the energetic path and everything that you have seen, I am just floored with what is going to happen to you. And I feel like this is kind of a kickoff as well. Tell me, let's can we go into martial arts, because that was also, you've seen energetic and oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like things that could not really be true, but they are true. So that kind of opened you up more. So yeah, tell us about your experience there.
Yeah. So again, that started when I was quite young. Obviously, being um, Scottish Chinese, like growing up like with martial arts, and you know, like my mum watching like kung fu period dramas and stuff like that when I was a kid had a like massive influence on me.
Hmm.
And it was all kind of like fantasy, you know, people flying around with swords and like blasting like energy bolts at each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's that like I found out it's actually true. Obviously, it's dramatized for like television, but it's stuff like that actually exists. And the first time I experienced it was when I saw like a kung fu master demonstrating his like chi, like energy, and he was a little old guy as well. He was like a wee. He was like maybe like 5'2" or something. You know, like big white beard, little skinny, scrawny guy, and he was doing he was like bending spears with his throat. He was taking broken glass, like rubbing his body like with broken glass. He was like breaking rocks, stones with his fingers, and he was being hit. You know, like his students were hitting him with like all sorts of like things, and they were just like breaking, and they were demonstrating. They call it like light. They have like light kung fu and heavy kung fu, so they can use their chi to make themselves heavy, and they become like immovable,
Mhm.
and like people can't move them, and they can use it also to for like light kung fu, where they become well obviously lighter, and they can like walk across like swords and blades and glass and all that kind of stuff. And it totally blew my mind, completely blew my mind. And I wanted to be able to do that stuff. And that's partly why I started doing martial arts. Um, and when I was a little bit older,
And did
in
you
like,
say that I know before you said you started around 7 years of
yeah,
age?
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then did you say 14ish,
It was on
17ish?
and off. Yeah, it was on and off. Like when I was a kid, obviously I didn't really take it that seriously because I was a kid.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got into my sort of twenties, like early twenties, that I started taking it a little bit more seriously. And I experienced that firsthand again in Hong Kong. I was maybe mid twenties, trained with a couple of guys over there that showed me, demonstrated like their chi to me, being able to direct their chi or manipulate my chi, basically to hurt me or to, like to kill, essentially to kill me. Um, And one of them, you've probably seen it, like old, like Bruce Lee started it with the 1 inch punch, when he'd hold his hand like an inch away from your body and like barely move, and he'd send the guy like flying.
Mhm.
So the guy did that on me the first time, and it was weird. And he was like saying, obviously, I'm just going to like do it lightly because I don't want to hurt you.
Mhm.
But if you were to do it full force, you could really hurt somebody, potentially kill somebody. Um, and it's crazy because you don't feel it's not like a like punch. It's
Mhm.
literally a really small movement, and it's more like a spring. You know, like if you're doing Reiki or something like that, when you can feel hands on you but nobody's touching you. It's kind of like that, and it's kind of like springing it pushes you back. And he was directing it to different parts of my body. So when he was like touching me or hitting me, like here, like I was feeling it here, or he's like flicking me in my chest and I'm feeling it in my leg, and just weird stuff like that. But it was super cool though.
So it neat to watch I'll call him a little old guy, the wise thinner man do it, but then to actually be experiential with it and to feel it within yourself. Okay, and Jared, I think you said last time you're 49 currently. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you started to take it more seriously in your 20s, how the 20 years since then, how serious are you with it now?
So I've not been practicing for a while. Like again, it was on and off. Like I had a pretty crazy kind of lifestyle,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was doing like a lot of different stuff. So it was kind of like
Okay,
on
what
and
does
off.
that mean?
I think that's a different type of podcast. Um,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah. But like I was focusing mostly on the combat side, like the physical like fighting part of it.
Yeah.
The sort of the internal like martial arts, I'm not very experienced in. I have tried it a couple of times, but it takes a lot of I have quite a short attention span, and you need a long attention span. It's like meditation. I struggle with
Yeah.
meditation, and it's the same sort of stuff. But hopefully one day, there's actually I just found like a Shaolin like kung fu guy in Glasgow, which I'm going to check out some point in the next couple of weeks. Um, after having, I didn't mention this to you last night, but I just had an Akashic reading on Friday,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, one of the things that she said to me was to try to recapture that wonderment of being a child, the stuff that you missed out on as a child. And she was like saying it's not too late to fulfill those dreams. You grew up too quickly, so now's the time to kind of like think about all that stuff. And one of the things I always wanted to do was, like be a kung fu master. And then I just happened to find this guy online, like literally the day after, 2 days after. So maybe it's a sign, yeah.
Oh my God, this feels so good. And I would also add in the wonderment of a child, the energy and the spirits and all of that. Oh my God, this is so great.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Jerry. Can you now tell me about, okay, so you've had these experiences with ghosts, spirits, and it was kind of like to reframe it or restate it. Yeah, this was just kind of part of my life, but I really wasn't into it, let's say. And then with martial arts, the energy and just seeing the capacities of what could be. What started your journey opening you up to more of this and the fact that our world is a matrix, or there's so much in it that is not true?
So for me, that's two separate topics. So the Matrix thing, I've always questioned everything. I just didn't understand like why like things were the way they were. Like why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to listen to this person? Like why do I need to get married? Why do I need to have kids? Like why? I just didn't understand like why everybody was the same. And it just I don't know, it just never made sense to me. But up until I left when I was 19, I was part of that that sort of brainwash like clone thing. I
Okay,
genuinely thought that
were you in
like my
Scotland? Do you leave
yeah, in
Scotland at
Scotland.
19? Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up here obviously, and I thought that that's what I was supposed to do.
Okay.
Like school, um, a job for life, wife,
Yeah.
kids, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I truly believed that until I left when I was 19 to go
Mhm.
traveling, and I saw the world for the first time, met so many different people, done so many different things that I never thought I would do, and that was when it really opened my eyes because I met a lot of people, a lot of backpackers, a lot of travelers, and a lot of people that I wouldn't normally meet. As somebody like myself wouldn't normally meet,
Mhm.
but um, as I was working as a bartender at the time, and people open up to bartenders. It's weird. It's a weird thing. So as a personal trainer as well, people open up to us like they trust us like doctors. Like we're
Yeah.
doctors, they tell us everything. And I met like loads and loads of people through that, um, which was an eye opener as well. And I'd also always kind of been on the fringe of like the conspiracy like theories. Like I love reading about secret societies. Um, I love like fake moon landings, like all the kind of typical kind of stuff that you get into to start with.
Yeah.
And I had like maybe one or two friends at some point that were into similar things. Like my friend that introduced me to David Icke. Um, and after a while, everything pieces together. Everything's kind of related. Um,
And
and
do you
that's
mind
when I
talking about David Icke, because you were, like in the States, know of him, but you grew up with him, because he was a professional football player. Yeah, what was that like? Yeah, talk about what you saw with him.
yeah, like I was a little bit. He was a little bit before my time, but I remember him. I think he was like a goalkeeper for England, and then he
Hmm.
became like a sort of TV celebrity. He was like a football pundit commentator,
Hmm.
and I do remember this guy. I didn't know his name or who he was at the time, but I do remember seeing him on TV when I was a kid, being ridiculed on like a talk show,
Hmm.
and um, it was basically off of the back of his story was that one day he was just sitting normal day and he got a sudden like voice or an urge telling him to get on a plane and go to Peru, I think it was. So he did, and he didn't know why. He just did it. And when he got there to a particular place, I remember reading that he described it was like was hit by a bolt of lightning, and all this like knowledge was being channeled into him, and he was being told that he was being used as a conduit, and he had to go and spread the word and all this kind of stuff. And he was given all this information, so that's what he tried to do, but he was just ridiculed for it. And when he did that interview, that was the last time that he was on TV. After that, he kind of like went underground and just started writing books. I think now, because he's a lot older now, obviously, he still kind of talks about how that changed him. But at the same time, it was kind of it was kind of the birth of like the whole David Icke thing now. So when my friend introduced him to me, that added like another crazy layer to everything.
Okay, so what did you learn from him?
So the thing I was most fascinated with him was his whole idea about lizard people. Yeah, like so lizard people apparently they rule us. They control us like from a lower dimension. They keep us. They basically feed off of our emotions, and they are everywhere. They'll walk among us. They're our celebrities, our royal families, our government, and people have spoken about their experiences with these things. And it sounds wild. It sounds made up. I didn't believe it at first, but after a while, like you start digging a little bit deeper, you start listening or watching videos of people telling the same story with the same experiences. And it's as with a lot of this, like these people have nothing to gain by
Right.
coming out and saying that my wife is a lizard, or like I saw Justin Bieber turn into like a lizard, or they have nothing to gain. Like the only thing that you're just like opening yourself to like ridicule, and it's like why would these people make it up? And I think also like with can you hear the rain?
I
um,
don't. That's nice.
yeah, yeah. I think also it's when you start to connect the dots. There's actually evidence of these things. There's like if you look back in history, there's like statues and hieroglyphics and ancient like stories from like ancient civilizations about these same things that people are still describing today, and that can't be made up. It's I think like I was saying with like I mentioned with the Sasquatch thing yesterday, if this was a new thing that started last month, you could
Right.
yeah you could potentially say it's a hoax because you could use the internet to start something like that. But back in the day, thousands of years ago, when people were talking and talking about the same thing, describing the same thing, we're talking about people in different countries that don't even know each other exist, but they're describing the same thing. So how can that be if it's not a real thing? They're obviously seeing something, and it's obviously really, really similar or the same thing that they're seeing. So yeah, so David Icke opened my eyes to all that, and it was crazy.
How
But
when you first started reading that and opening your eyes to it and also having this disbelief, was it more in terms of your study and noting that multiple people without lots of people have had these experiences? Did that further solidify it for you, or was there more that just kept adding to that?
um, I think like the eyewitness stuff is pretty compelling for me.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many of them. It's like all these people can't possibly be lying, but it kind of opened up like so many other things. The more answers you have, the more questions there are, and then, but it's such a broad topic as well,
Yes.
and when you, especially with somebody like David Icke, he's done so much research and he pulls in so many different things. It's actually pretty difficult to follow when you're talking like about talking about things from other planets, things from undergrounds, like bloodlines, conspiracies, like pedophiles, like satanic rituals, like black magic, all this kind of stuff. It's actually really hard to follow, and it's like even now, it's one of those things
Yeah.
where you kind of like you kind of start feeling like you're getting it, and you're kind of like, oh, right, that's what it's about, and then you learn something else, and you're like, oh wait, you need to start again.
I know there's more and there's more and there's more. And we talked about too how when you start to open up to a lot of this stuff, it's very lonely and isolating because just like David Icke, I know there was, I've seen that interview where he was ridiculed. It's hard to watch. And knowing that he would walk down the street and people would spit on him, that, to come out about this and knowing that now it's much more accepted, but it's lonely. And I know we talked about this yesterday that right now for you, there aren't a lot of people in your periphery that are on the same level as you or same level of understanding. Is that right? The way I said it?
Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, I feel like there's not very many people I can talk to about this stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll talk to anybody about it, but nobody really listens, or they just laugh and think that I'm joking. And it used to bother me, and I used to try to convince people
Right.
like that of what I was saying, but now I don't, because you can't convince anybody of anything. And I feel like when when people that don't, if somebody disagrees with you about something like this, that's kind of like fringe, they're not even willing to listen and like converse and debate about it. It's just no. And I think that's partly to do with how it's portrayed like by the media,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because everybody is controlled by the media. Like everybody, their minds are like David Icke says about the greatest like hypnotist in the world is that rectangular box in the corner of your living room, right?
Yep.
So yeah, people just shut you down, and they're not even willing to have a conversation about these things, whether it's David Icke or the pandemic or like whatever conspiracy you're talking about. They're just not willing to talk about it. But I do have like maybe one or two people that we can talk about things, but not. I don't think they're as deep as I am.
Oh man, which is so
Yeah,
nice with us talking today. Because oh yeah, I guess we also know that conspiracy theories are truth and that they're called conspiracy theories. So people, think that you're bat crazy to believe them. Hey, I want to ask you also about Jimmy Savile. Hopefully, I'm saying. Did I say his name right?
Jimmy Savile. Yeah.
Savile. Thank you. Because I know about him, but again, him being in your periphery. Let me read this for just a second. Let's have you talk about your personal experience. So he lived from 1926, died in 2011. He was an English media personality and DJ, known for his eccentric image, charitable work, and hosting the BBC shows Top of the Pops and Jimmy'll Fix It. After his death, hundreds of allegations of sexual abuse made against him were investigated, tarnishing his reputation and leading police to conclude that he was a predatory sex offender and possibly one of Britain's most prolific. All right, tell me about your experience with that.
So this guy, when I was a kid, I used to watch him on TV.
Hmm.
He had a show called Jim Will Fix It, and it was like kids used to write into the show with their dreams. And
Oh,
so I actually think I wrote to him at one point. And so kids would write in and say like they wanted to meet like a footballer, or they wanted to play the drums with their favorite band, or they wanted to do a parachute jump and stuff like that. And he would like fix it for them to do that. And that was the premise of the show. And I don't know how many years this ran for, but um, this whole time, like you say, it wasn't until after his death that the allegations came out.
hmm.
But during this whole time, like David Icke had been writing about him and many other people, and saying that were um, they were all paedophiles, and he was supplying celebrities, the royal family, people in the government, like everybody with children, and he was doing it through his celebrity, because his celebrity granted him access to like everywhere really, and he used to do a lot of like charity work for. He used to do like marathons and stuff for like sick kids, hospital.
Oh
Um,
man.
yeah, and yeah, and this was how he was doing it. And it wasn't until afterwards. Well, unless you were reading David Icke, you wouldn't have heard about it till afterwards.
Yeah.
He would go to like hospitals to visit kids, and obviously I'm not going to go into detail about the allegations, but like you can Google it. But he had access to like vulnerable kids basically, and that's one of the ways that he used to, um, yeah, supply these people with children. Um, and he at one point he was knighted by the Queen. I think he was knighted by the Queen, or he was rewarded some sort of reward from the Queen anyway. So he was like friends, like with the royal family and all these other celebrities, and apparently he was the go-to guy. So unfortunately, it never came out until after like he died, so he never had to pay for his like crimes. A lot of people say that it happened after he died. They kind of used him as a scapegoat because he was dead. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Well, I'm guessing if it came out after his death too, who he supplied children to, like no one else was really called out who was famous, which
No,
seems
I
to be the
think
case a lot.
yeah. Following that, there was a couple of other allegations of other people that worked
Okay.
for the BBC, um, but they were all like sort of older guys, like in their sort of 70s. I can't remember their names. It wasn't anybody that I recognised from like childhood or anything like that, but they still worked for the BBC. And a lot of people like in this sort of celebrity kind of world were saying, yeah, it was kind of like an open secret, like everybody knew, but really didn't really do anything about it. And if you think about like the
Man.
types of people that he was friends with and the types of people that he was supplying kids to, who would you talk to anyway? Because if he's friends with the royal family, he supplies kids to like the chief of police and politicians and whatever. Who are you going to go to that's going to do anything? So
Right.
yeah, so there's no real solution there. But the other couple of people that had allegations brought against them, they were like sort of again they were older, sort of close to death type age.
Hmm.
Nobody really cared, and I think they were probably just used as scapegoats as well to make it look like they were doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it goes on everywhere, like in every industry, like they're everywhere.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Man. Well, do you mind going into cryptids? Because I know you have an affection for Sasquatch. How and UFOs. How did you get in not into that, but aware of that? Did David Icke help you with that or totally separate? Or yeah, explain a little bit.
so that started when I was a kid. I remember one of my sisters had a book, and it was about like just weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a picture of Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. And there was one, I can't remember the guy's name, it's quite a famous picture that a French explorer took. And it's like a black and white image of some sort of like monkey man. Like, it was dead, it was propped up with a stick. Um, it's quite a famous picture, but and a few other ones that have never been explained. Apparently, the one that the French guy took was later. It was a spider monkey, but at the time the spider monkeys weren't like that well known. And apparently, he had made the image like look so that the monkey looked bigger than what it was.
Hmm.
Um, so that was kind of what got me interested, and I just started doing. I wouldn't say research, but any sort of chance that I got. to look at a book or a magazine, or if there was a documentary on TV about monsters and whatnot, I was like all over it. Yeah, I just like loved that stuff. It was just like fascinating, and then obviously living in Scotland, we got like the Loch Ness monster here.
That's right. Hello. Oh, neat.
Yeah. Um, but the first time I went to Scotland, I went to Loch Ness. Actually, I was like super disappointed. Was fully expecting to see Nessie when you get there, but you don't. It's just a big, massive bit of water.
Hmm.
But actually, like I used to believe that it was an actual flesh and blood like creature that lived in the loch. But
Hmm.
um, a couple of years ago, I heard a really good theory, which I think is more plausible. And that it basically says that when people see Nessie, what they're seeing is actually happening. It's actually there at the time. Um, but the reason why we can't find it or them is because what they're seeing is like it's an interdimensional thing. It's like somehow like dimensions or universes have somehow crossed over just for that few seconds or minutes or whatever. So they're seeing it at the time, and then whatever like that's been crossed over uncrosses itself, and then it disappears, and then that's why you can't find it. So thinking about it, that's probably more likely than having a like giant like serpent-like monster living in the lake. But you never know, like stranger things have happened.
Mhm. I think it's all dimensional and it's all going on at the same time. And when we open ourselves up to see and be more, we can like it's all happening right here. So I do want to say on episode 95, we're going to get another episode. Jason have a really awesome interview with him. He saw Sasquatch in his, I think it was his 20s, and it changed his whole life. Because same thing, when you see something like that, like he was, I think, a very Christian conservative life, and he couldn't, there were so many things that he couldn't believe anymore. So I think that also, like, people needing to see that at times to open them up and to change them is really good. UFOs, what do you think about that?
UFOs I've been fascinated with. Aliens have been
Yeah.
fascinated with since I was a kid as well. Again, it was just from a random picture that I saw. Um, and since then, I actually believe I've seen like a few UFOs. In fact, they were UFOs because I didn't know what they were. The weirdest one was in Thailand. I was on the balcony with my girlfriend at the time, and it was raining, and we were just sitting on the balcony, and I just noticed like a ball in the sky that wasn't there a second ago. And I pointed it out to her, and we were kind of like looking at it, and we were like, "Is that a plane? Is that like a helicopter? Is that a bird?" But it wasn't. It was just like a ball, and it just sat there, and it just didn't move. Um, but the weirdest thing about it, the rain went around it, and it was just weird. And she said like she had been living in Thailand for quite a few months at that time, and she said that she had spoken to like a couple of locals about it, and they said that they were the spirits of their ancestors. But I reckon it was some sort of like craft, some sort of I don't know what to call it, but it definitely was physical. I think um, I saw something really similar one time here when I was driving home from work, and another time not that long ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, coming home at night time. As I was pulling up to the house, there was just I just saw like a greeny sort of blue. It was like a like sparkly trail.
Hmm.
And I was like, what's that? So I kind of like slowed to stop, and it was like a ball just like flew past the windscreen. Um, so I was just sitting there a little bit confused, and I don't know if this is coincidence, but literally maybe 15, 20 seconds after that, like two police cars with their sirens and stuff like that, like flew past as well.
Whoa.
Um, I don't know if that was coincidence, but that was pretty weird. And one other time when I was up in the Highlands, I just saw this weird thing like in the sky again. It was just like this one was kind of like swirly. And initially I thought, because I wasn't familiar with the area, and my girlfriend at the time, we were in the car, we were coming
Yeah.
down this hill, and we saw, and I just thought it was a light on the other side of the beach, the water, and I was kind of looking at it, but then I thought, no, there's no land over there. That's like sea. Um, and then my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "Did you just see that?" And I was just like, "Yeah, did you just see that?" So we stopped and we looked, and it just got smaller and smaller and smaller, and it just disappeared. And strangely, the night before, when we were walking along the harbour, there was a couple of cars that were parked, and there was one of them. There was just a guy by himself, and he had one of those massive the cameras with a massive lens,
Yeah.
and he was just sitting in the car, just like sitting and waiting.
Yeah.
And there was another couple in another car that were just sitting waiting. They had cameras as well. So I'm not sure if it was like a natural phenomenon or if they knew something else, or but it was weird. It's not like anything I've seen before, so I count that as beautiful.
Wow, that's so great. Tell us what you are planning with your work, your next step.
So with my recent kind of like journey, I suppose, into holistic therapies, just over the last like year and a half or so,
Mhm.
um, I want to try to bring everything together, like everything that's helped me with my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, that has completely changed my life. I want to bring it together, like into under one roof, into like one program, basically, and use it also to um, create a community of like-minded people that you can rely on for support, whether you need a training partner or if you're having a bad day or you're like thinking about checking out, or if you
Yeah.
need some, you know, or if you need some Reiki or something like that. And that, you know, like people talk about there's no community anymore and people don't know their neighbors and all that kind of stuff. And recently, people talk a lot about mental health and this and that and whatever. We need to do this, we need to do that, but not a lot of people are doing anything. And I feel like I'm in the position I could potentially create something to help people, and that maybe I went through the stuff that I've been through to get to this point
Heck
that I'm
yeah.
able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, it's going to be crazy. Like every day I have new ideas. It's just like about putting this all together. You know?
So
Um,
excited for you.
yeah.
And I my big thing right now is co- community, not
Mhm.
spiritual community, but just my community. And I've had one gathering. I probably sent out, like, went door to door with invitations, like putting in mailboxes or whatever. We had a small group, maybe 9 of us. Okay. And then so beautifully, like four of them decided they would help me put out flyers again. We put out over 100,
Yeah.
maybe had four more people attend. And there were people that I had approached face to face or that I knew. So
Mm.
it's so interesting right now that there's such a need for it, yet people are not willing. And I can't tell you, Jerry, how many do they have ring doorbells in the UK where, you go up to the door and they just, like, there are cameras everywhere. There's just this,
Yeah.
like, I see people getting the invitation and asking, like, I wonder if this is true or not. That, yeah, and I believe it's so important, and I believe we're getting back to that. It's going to take some time. So I'm so delighted that that is what you are also thinking of. In my spiritual community, I've been starting that also, and it's really taking an upswing. But I don't know about for you. The pandemic for me changed so much of the trajectory, and then in terms of people believing in me and wanting to be part of any of this, they were just like, I don't really trust you anymore. I can't believe. Yeah, so it's been. I feel like now in 2025 that this is going to be the year to start really bringing people together and even different opinions. And yeah, I'm going to say that out loud because I really, I everyone who's listening, please send Jerry some love and some energy because this sounds fabulous. And if you happen to be in his area when he starts, hey, and I wanted to ask you if there's anything else you want to add, but I would love to go into the Just Be practice with you. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, sure. Let me just
Okay.
pull this up.
Just Be practice. Okay, so what are you pulling up?
So I wrote a poem, and so basically I started writing when I was a kid. I was going through some tough times and didn't really have anybody to reach out to. So I started writing, kind of just as a comfort thing, and it kind of stuck with me as I got older. And it's helped me like through a lot of hard times. I actually highly recommend it if you've never tried it before to anybody out there that might be struggling with whatever. And after a little while, it started just coming out in rhymes, just like little poems. And yeah, then one day the words just kind of stopped until recently, the last like year and a bit, the words kind of came back. And it's been the best thing. It was like being reunited with an old friend that I hadn't seen
Oh,
for like a really long time.
yeah.
So I wrote this thing which I'd like to share. Maybe it'll help somebody, anyone that's maybe struggling. So, so for as long as I can remember, I've had this sadness inside me, just this weird emptiness that's kind of always part of me. I'm not sure when, why, where, or how it started, but sometimes it feels like my soul has departed. I've spent my life trying to fill this hole with people and things, but things fade and people leave, so I just wait for what the future brings. For so long, I've been stuck in this cycle, making all the wrong choices, toxic relationships, wrong crowds, addictions, listening to all the wrong voices. Always telling myself this time will be different from before, but there's always been this feeling that I can't ignore, that things are wrong and I need to change my train of thought, stop hurting myself and recreate what I seem to have forgot. I'm the only one that can fix myself once and for all. Not even sure how I let myself become so mediocre and small. So, from psychics to kung fu and a tumor in African sands, Muay Thai to affirmations, sound baths, and the heat of Reiki hands, a Spanish island, Krav Maga, blue skies, balcony, and pool. A truly captivating French girl with effortless charm and cool. Magic made from gathering together waters and watching the sunrise. Incredible food, new friends, abandoned dogs, and the stars in Maltese skies. These are some of the things that's helped guide me to this point I'm at today, where everyday life seems less painful than it did yesterday. It was a long, dark path though, demons on every corner, pain and tears, but tired of hiding from myself and the world, I needed to face my fears. Tired of spiritually only just scraping by and surviving, secretly knowing I'm the only real reason that I've not been thriving. The ego and small self always whispers that I'm victim and not to blame, but actually I just needed to own my mistakes and face my shame. Now the clouds of confusion seem to have fully dissipated. Shrugging off the chains of the past, I'm emancipated. My broken heart is starting to heal as I take back control, and I can feel once more as these words pour out from my soul. If anything I've said resonates with you, if you feel lost or are in pain, I offer you my hand and a hug and urge you to stand tall and maintain. You don't suck at life and you do matter, and things will get better, they always do. The universe has your back, and your ancestors and spirit guides will always help to protect you. But ultimately, it's an inside job. So remember, you are brave and powerful and strong. believe, be true, love yourself, and you will find all you deserve and get to where you belong.
Oh, man. The second time I've heard you read that, and it was even more powerful than the first. Jerry, can I tell you something?
Sure.
I feel it is also time for men to really come out, show, still just being more vulnerable and heart led. And you are a true example of that. And I feel the evolution that we're going on right now. I am super stoked to have met you. And I tell folks that come on the show, okay, you don't just come on the show. We're connected. If you ever need anything, do you want to put out any contact information for yourself, or would you like people to contact me to get a hold of you if that ever came to be, or what would you like to do?
I mean, if anybody wanted to contact me for whatever reason, they can feel free. You could just email me, like shall I just say my
Yeah, just say it.
email address? So my email address is purple_octopus@gmx.co.uk.
Okay. And I'll put a picture of that for those that are watching, and it will be in the notes as well. Jerry, man, so glad you weren't incognito. I'm so glad we did this again today because I can't tell you how many times we froze yesterday. Just once this time, which is super great. Thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing your heart, for sharing your stories. Because we do not think you're weird. I mean, if you're weird, I'm super weird. And it's none of it's weird. It's just all really true. And more, once people start to wake up to it, you feel more at peace, you feel whole, you feel connected. It's wonderful. So Jerry, please sign off with that. Stay with me for a second and we'll sign off here. See you guys next week. Thank you, Jerry, again. Please say goodbye.
Thanks very much, guys.
Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, True Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.